Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, it is Wingy here and welcome to another video. So from time to time when I do Q&As, a lot of the time people bring up Pokemon. Now, as you can see on my desk, I do like Pokemon, and I did do a walkthrough series of Pokemon Yellow. 5 episodes that I haven't finished yet and probably won't finish. However, I do still love Pokemon, but one thing that I get asked a lot is like, what are my favourite Pokemon, what are my favourite games and all that sort of stuff. So what I thought I would do is just go through some of my favourite Pokemon, some of my favourite games, but I've kind of broken it down into different categories. Because I was going to do like my top 5 favourite Pokemon, but I just thought I can't really pick 5. So I thought I would talk about some of my favourites within these categories and just explain why, because Pokemon was a major part of my childhood. It's still a major part now. I have many memories on this thing. So let's just crack on and get in with it then. So the first category I will go for is my favourite Pokemon game. Now this is a tough one because I was part of that generation that grew up with Pokemon as it came out. My first ever game that I remember was Pokemon Yellow, hence why I did the walkthrough of it. And then when generations 2 and 3 came out, I played them, and I think for that reason I'm gonna have to go with generation 3, which is Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, but I played Ruby. Now the reason why that's my favourite game is because that's the one that I think I put the most effort into. Well, no, it was, because that's the only game where I've actually completed the Pokedex. I would sit for hours on my Game Boy going through that game, getting my other Game Boy, using link cables and trading Pokemon over, because I had a Sapphire version as well, just to get like exclusives and swap them over. And I think I literally got the most out of that game, more than any other game in the Pokemon series. Whenever I think of my main Pokemon experience, I always think of just sitting on my bed, going on my Game Boy, or long car rides or whatnot. Literally just sat at a relative's house, just like... So yeah, it's gotta be that one. Next I've gone for my favourite starter Pokemon. Now this one is hard. Actually no, it isn't. But in terms of my favourite starter, in terms of my love for that Pokemon, it's gotta be Chikorita. Oh, I love Chikorita. I really, really do. It's a satanic pair, but I love it. I imagine if I had the sort of following that was like GIFs and Tumblr posts and just like, oh my god, isn't he so cute? That'd send them fangirls crazy. That'll never happen though, will it? But no, the reason why Chikorita... I can't stop playing with it now. But I think the reason why Chikorita is my favourite is because I know I just said that Pokemon Ruby is my favourite game, but my favourite experience was delving into the Johto region. And Chikorita was the Pokemon that set me off on that journey. I was also a massive fan of the Pokemon anime, and I always liked the stuff with Chikorita getting jealous with Pikachu, and then I vividly remember the episode where Chikorita finally evolved into Bayleaf. It was sort of like my peak interest of the Pokemon anime, I guess. And I'm not going to sit here and act like Chikorita is the best Pokemon ever. It's not the best starter at all. In fact, even for the Johto region in Gen 2 or the Heart Gold Soul Silver games, it's not even the best starter out of them 3. But it was the one that I liked the most. It was the one that took me on one of my favourite Pokemon journeys. And I don't know if people realise this, but depending on which starter that you pick, that sort of determines your difficulty level for the game, I guess. And I think Chikorita was hard mode. I think you had a hard time if you played with Chikorita through Gen 2, which I found. Not straight away, but I eventually came to learn that Chikorita was probably not the best Pokemon to start off with. But I think everything from the design, its evolution line, my attachment to it, it's just got to be my favourite starter. And I bet some people are relieved that I didn't just go with the generic answer of Charmander, which is a great Pokemon, don't get me wrong, and Charizard is awesome. And as much as I love it, and I have Charizard in most of my Pokemon teams now on the later games like X and Y onwards, I'll always have a soft spot for Chikorita, and I'll always try and get one on those games as well. Next I've gone for a category that I think is quite an interesting one, because I don't know how many people actually have this sort of opinion, but I've gone for the generic bird type Pokemon. Now the reason why is because usually in every Pokemon game there is a new bird type introduced that is or flying type to be specific. It's just like a basic bird design that eventually evolves into something else and will usually just be there in your party because it learns fly, particularly early on. Now there's a few that I could have gone with here. I could have gone with Pidgeot, who I really, really like. Of course, that was again a major part of the anime for me, seeing Ash with his Pidgeotto, later Pidgeot. I really, really like Talonflame from X and Y, and well, Gen 6. But I think I have to go with Swellow here, and the reason why I've gone with Swellow is because, like I say, Pokemon Ruby was my favourite game, and as soon as I caught that Tailo, I leveled it up, I evolved it, it didn't leave my party. That Swellow was with me from Route 4 or wherever it is that you catch Talos in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, but from there to the Elite Four and Champion, that was one of my main Pokemon. Now the thing is, the bird types, except for Talonflame, which is incredibly overpowered, they're not the best Pokemon ever, they're not the best for battling, but it's just because it was there throughout my favourite Pokemon journey. Again, it is a Pokemon that, regardless of which game I am playing, I will always tend to try and find a Tailo and evolve it into a Swellow, just because I like having one on my team. However, Talonflame is so close as a second. Next category I've gone for is a surprising favourite, so a Pokemon that you wouldn't really expect to be somebody's favourite, a Pokemon that sort of surprises you along the way on your journey, whether it just turns up partway through and you just evolve it and it's amazing, or you just like the design or something like that. For me, this one is easy because it's Azumarill. Now, I might be wondering, why Azumarill? That's such a random Pokemon. Well, yeah, it's a surprising favourite, funnily enough. But no, the reason why I've gone for that is, again, it reminds me of Pokemon Ruby, because I remember catching a Marill in the daycare route, I think it was. I evolved it into an Azumarill, and it was the first Pokemon that I ever trained to level 100. Put so much time and effort into training a Pokemon to level 100. Like, if you didn't play those original games, then I don't think you'll understand how big of an achievement it felt like when you're a kid and you finally reach 100. Like, the grind to level Pokemon up is ridiculous in those older games. Nowadays it's easier because you have stuff like the EXP share. The actual distribution of experience points is just so good compared to how it was back in the day. But this Azumarill was like my mainstay Pokemon on my Pokemon Ruby team. It wasn't even the best Pokemon. There was no such thing as Fairy type then, so even though Azumarill I think is Water and Fairy now, it's a much more solid Pokemon now, but back then it just used to steamroll through everything. Mostly because it was level 100. Plus it's like a water rabbit. That's awesome. It's got a design that's both cute and I think kind of slightly badass as well. I mean, maybe that's just me, but I just love an Azumarill. I really do. Again, it's one of those Pokemon, especially now that it has Fairy type. It's a Pokemon that I'll always try and get. I don't necessarily train it to level 100 like I did that original one, and it's definitely not a mainstay on my teams anymore. But for some reason, I just grew attached to that Marill, and then I evolved it, and it just, like with the Swellow, it just stayed in my party. It never left. I mean, a reason for this may be because around that time, I think I got a Marill plushie when I was a kid for Christmas or something, and I always used to play with it, so I think I just found one in the wild on Pokemon Ruby and was just like, hey, I've got this in here and in real life, so I just kept it. In terms of like my favourite specific Pokemon, as in not just all of them in general, but just one, it's got to be that Azumarill. I mean, as much as I love Chikorita, it's my favourite Pokemon overall. I love every single one that I've had, but there's only one Azumarill for me, and it's that one that I had in Pokemon Ruby. It's mad how much you actually get attached to him. Second to last category we're going to go with is the Pseudo Legendary. Now, just to define what a Pseudo Legendary is, for those who don't know, it's a Pokemon that is quite rare and quite hard to find. It usually has really good stats, but it isn't quite a Legendary. It's just a tier beneath it. An example of a Pokemon like this would be Dragonite, but my favourite isn't Dragonite. And seeing as I've banged on about Pokemon Ruby quite a few times, and I've said it in a Q&A I think, my favourite's Metagross. Now the reason why I love Metagross so much is it's just a weird Pokemon. It starts off as this weird bell thing, Beldew or something? Bellew? That's a boxer. Beldum. Is it Beldum? Fuck, why don't I know this? It's just a really interesting Pokemon design. It's got really good stats, or at least from my experience it did. I'm not somebody who gets into all the like competitive online battling that people do now. I literally just do the story mode and that's it. But for me it was always a great Pokemon. And it's one of the few Pokemon where I actually just flat out try and avoid the shiny version. Like, even if I find a shiny version of it, I'll just avoid it because I prefer the original sort of dark blue as opposed to the weird silver and gold. But yeah, it was always a fun Pokemon for me. And I just think that Dragonite's a bit overrated. However, I do quite like it. And then last but not least, of course, it's got to be Legendary. Now there have been, just so many legendary Pokemon at this stage. It's usually like the cover Pokemon. Well, from Gen 2 onwards it was anyway. And I mean, there is literally loads. I mean, I could go with Mewtwo here, I could go with Groudon here, I could go with Lugia. Deoxys was always a good one, Rayquaza was a good one, or Rayquaza. I say Rayquaza, I don't know what the actual pronunciation is. Yveltal, I really like from Pokemon Y. But if I have to pick one, I'm gonna have to go with Articuno. It's not the most interesting Pokemon design, it is essentially just a blue bird, but the reason why I've gone for this is because this was the first ever legendary Pokemon that I caught in any of the games. It was Pokemon Yellow, it was when I was playing that as a kid, and I happened to just randomly come across it. Like back in the day, I didn't even know where to find them. I was just walking through some random location, there was Articuno. And I caught it. I mean, it took me a few attempts to get it, as legendaries always do. But as soon as I saw it and it was just there, I just knew it was something special. And Articuno was actually a Pokemon that I don't like using legendaries on my team, but back when I was playing Pokemon Yellow, Articuno was a Pokemon that helped me get through the Elite Four and through the Champion as well. And it'll always hold a special place in my heart. And I tell you another funny thing, it's the only legendary that I currently have in Pokemon Go as well. I don't play Pokemon Go as much as I used to, otherwise I could have had a few more. But you just get like random rewards now for field research in the game. And one of my random rewards was an Articuno, which I thought was really, really bizarre, but I wasn't complaining. Thank fuck I caught that, because if that bastard ran away, I would have been so upset. But yeah, those are some of my favourite Pokemon in my favourite Pokemon game. I just thought this would be a different video to do. I know that some people asked me to do more Pokemon stuff and whatnot, so I just thought, yeah, fuck it, why not? But yeah, let me know in the comments below, what are some of your favourite Pokemon? Now, you can use my categories if you want, or just literally list your top 5 or top 10 or just your favourite. I don't care. Whatever it is in the comments below, let me know. And also share with me, like, why? Why are they some of your favourite Pokemon and some of your favourite games? Because I think Pokemon is one of those things that it's a major, major part of your childhood. And I think it's good to just relive some of those memories from time to time. Yeah, any of that stuff, let me know. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe for more. Social media, Patreon, links are all in the description. Do any of those things and I would love you forever. Not as much as my Zoom reel, but I'll still love you forever. But until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.